we've all seen the images of the Blitz, right? The bombs, the fires, all the rubble. But what was it really like to live through it, day in and day out? Well, today, we're going to go beyond those black and white photos. We're going to hear the story of daily survival and incredible resilience on the British home front, told by the people who were actually there.
And that's really the heart of what we're digging into today. Not just what happened, but how it felt. We're going to uncover that answer through the amazing first-hand accounts of two young women who lived through every single moment of it.
So our guides on this journey are Rose and Betty. Now, you got to picture this. They were just 18 years old when the war started. Teenagers, really. Their entire youth was completely upended by a global conflict that literally showed up on their doorstep.
Rose, she ended up right at the center of wartime information, typing up monitored news for government offices. Betty, on the other hand, she was a crucial link for the military, working the telephone lines. I mean, these were just ordinary young women who were suddenly thrown into these roles of huge national importance. Their lives were forever changed by the daily reality of war.
For years, the most immediate, the most terrifying threat came from the sky. Night after night, the air raids forced the entire country to adapt to a new kind of life, a life lived in total darkness and under constant threat.
Just imagine your whole country being plunged into absolute darkness. Seriously, no streetlights, car headlights had to be painted over. You couldn't let even a tiny sliver of light escape from your windows. This was the blackout, a really eerie, disorienting new reality, all designed to make Britain a ghost to the bombers flying high above.
So this slide shows the two main choices people had for shelter. First, the government gave out these steel Anderson shelters you dig into your backyard. But as Rose remembered, they were cold, they were damp, and just awful to sleep in. So thousands of Londoners chose something else. They went deep underground, basically turning the city's subway stations into these huge, sprawling dormitories every single night.
And this right here, this quote, just brilliantly captures the unique psychological terror of the V-2 rockets. Rose explained that it wasn't the sound of the engine that was scary. It was the sudden, heart-stopping silence. That silence meant the rocket was falling, and all you could do was brace for impact, a moment of pure, absolute dread. But the threat wasn't only coming from the sky. There was a second, quieter war being fought every single day on the home front. This was the battle for resources, a daily grind where every little scrap of food, every piece of material was precious and strictly controlled. The government's answer to this was the ration book, and it controlled pretty much every aspect of daily life. The restrictions were honestly shocking, especially when it came to food. Just think about this. The ration eventually dropped to just 1 egg per person per month. 1 egg.
And meat? It was a measly 2 ounces per week. Rose remembered how families would have to pool their entire household share just to have 1 small roast for a Sunday dinner.
And the rationing went way beyond the kitchen. For clothes, you got just 18 coupons every 6 months. A single winter coat could use up almost all of them, which made getting new clothes pretty much impossible. It was a world of make do and mend, as they used to say.
As you can see, this little book governed every single part of your life. It decided what you ate, what you wore, and how you lived. It was a whole system of forced scarcity that required a ton of creativity and cooperation just to get by.
So how did the country fight back against starvation? Well, they turned to the soil. The Dig for Victory campaign was this massive national effort. Public parks, private gardens, you name it. Any patch of green was turned into a vegetable plot to help feed the nation.
Okay, so between the constant fear of bombs and the daily struggle of rationing, how on earth did people keep their morale up? Well, the sources of that resilience were a really powerful mix of national leadership and some deeply personal escapes.
A huge piece of that resilience came from one voice, broadcast over the radio: Winston Churchill's speeches. They weren't just political updates, they were a lifeline. Rose remembered his simple, powerful message, "Never give up," as a phrase that truly pulled the nation together.
And that leadership was backed up by the royal family. King George VI and Queen Elizabeth famously refused to leave London, even after Buckingham Palace itself was bombed. Their quiet defiance sent this incredibly powerful message to the whole world. We are in this with you.
So, national symbols provided strength, for sure. But what about a personal escape? On a day-to-day level, where did people go to just release the crushing stress of it all?
Social life became more important than ever
As Rose explained it, people had money from working, but there was very little to spend it on. So what did they do? They flocked to the cinemas and dance halls. These weren't just distractions. They were, in a way, defiant acts of normalcy and joy. And for Rose, it was at one of these very dances that she met the American airman who would become her husband.
So when you put it all together, the shared fear, the collective sacrifice of rationing, those small moments of joy, you start to understand the unique national character that was forged in this fire. It was a collective will that just refused to break.
So what were the key ingredients of this incredible resilience? Well, Rose believed it came down to a powerful combination. First, a united cause. Everyone felt like they were fighting for their very survival, together. Second, a deep trust in their leadership. And third, the simple geographic reality of being an island. There was just nowhere to run. They had to stand and fight.
And this brings us to Rose's final reflection, something she said decades later. Her concern wasn't just about preserving history, but about making sure future generations truly appreciate the sacrifices that were made, and the risk of us all forgetting what that generation went through.
And that's the powerful question Rose's story really leaves us with. You know, it's one thing to learn about historical events, but it's something else entirely to truly understand the human cost and the incredible human strength behind them. So how do we make sure these lessons of endurance are never forgotten? Thanks for joining this explainer.